So in the past, I've really struggled with journaling. Every time that I've tried to give it a go, because I read somewhere that it was life-changing, I ended up giving up because it felt really boring or it felt really unhelpful. Sometimes it even felt damaging. There were times when I'd be writing in my journal to process my emotions, and I'd end up ruminating on negative thoughts or feelings that I wouldn't have otherwise, just because I wanted to tick off the habit of daily journaling. If you relate to this, I feel you. I had all but written off journaling as a tool that only worked for some people. But in more recent times, I've started to journal in a way that's been genuinely beneficial. It's helped me to gain new perspectives, to find new insights on myself and on my life, and I can connect it all back to a change that I've made to the way that I'm journaling. Essentially, instead of just trying to put all of my experiences, thoughts, and feelings down on paper, I tried to follow my own advice when it comes to life and started to journal with intention. Nowadays, I don't journal every day. I'll journal maybe 2-4 times a month. But when I do journal, it's actually helping me rather than feeling like a kind of pointless activity that I'm forcing myself to do. So if you found that daily journaling doesn't really work for you, doesn't sit right with you personally, in this video, I want to talk about an alternative, which is intentional journaling. Before we dive into what intentional journaling looks like, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes in things like productivity, simplifying your life, journaling, writing, design, illustration, watercolor, all of the things to keep you calm, practice self-care, and learn a whole bunch. They are really bite-sized classes, so they're easy for you to digest and to do, and they also have a lot of actions behind them. So it's not just like someone telling you a bunch of things, it's also like, okay, now I've told you this, now do this, which I really like. The lessons on Skillshare can keep you excited about life, can give you something creative to occupy your time with, and there's also a really strong community behind Skillshare. A creative challenge or a productivity class can give you some structure and give you some small goals and wins that you can try and tackle in your days. Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially when you compare it to pricey in-person classes and workshops. It is less than $10 a month for an annual subscription. A class that I really enjoyed on Skillshare was Simple Productivity: How to Accomplish More with Less by Greg McKeown, the author of Essentialism. I'd highly recommend giving it a go. It's like a nice overview of the book Essentialism as well. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description down below will get their first 2 months of Skillshare for free, so make sure that you access that link down below. So now that I've talked about journaling in general, I want to talk a little bit more about intentional journaling, what it looks like for me, and give you some prompts to help you to start practicing intentional journaling. Firstly, what does intentional journaling actually mean versus journaling? Intentional journaling is starting out with an intention in mind, usually focusing on something particular. Your intention might be solving a problem, making a decision, moving forward with something, changing your perspective, overcoming anxious thoughts and feelings. So you'd usually kick off with a question to your subconscious, to yourself. If you're spiritual, to the universe, to God, depending on what you believe in, and then you would start your journal. Your question might be something like, how can I gain more confidence in this area? How can I bring more motivation and focus to my day-to-day? How can I escape comparison and bring more self-love into my life? It can really help if you sit and look inwards when you ask these questions initially. Just meditate on them a little bit before you actually kick off with journaling. A practice that I'm finding really helpful, specifically around this, is something called focusing, which is a meditative practice. After you have an intention for your journaling session, here are some helpful perspective shifts and ways of thinking that'll prompt you as you go through with your journaling. To give you some context on why these are really helpful journaling prompts, they all allow you to tap into outsiders' perspective. In the book Only the Paranoid Survive, Grove, who was a leader at Intel, remembers a conversation that he was having about how aimless everything felt in the business. Their strategies weren't working, they had so many competitors, they were being overtaken. Grove was in an office with Intel's chairman and CEO, and he asked, if we got kicked out and another CEO got appointed, how would they approach this? Without hesitation, the CEO said he would get us out of memories, because memories was a big part of Intel. Grove said, okay, well, why don't you and I walk out the door, come in as that new CEO and make that decision ourselves? And when they told their customers, so many many of their customers were like, yeah, we've been waiting for this for a while. We were wondering when you would actually make this change. Because their customers were people who had no emotional stakes in the decision, so they could see things more objectively. And that is the power of outsider's perspective. So to put yourself in the place of an outsider, you can ask yourself, how would Greg McKeown or Brene Brown handle this? Those are some people that I admire that have really strong perspectives on life and how we should approach it. Pick your own people by all means. You might refer to Jensen Zero, Lisa Messenger, Kristen Neff, Tim Ferriss, Cal Newport, whoever it is that you really admire and look up to. So for example, if you are asking yourself the question in your journaling session, how can I get more motivated and focused in life? Greg McKeown, the author of Essentialism, might ask, is what you're doing actually essential? Do you need to be working on multiple projects at one time? What are the trade-offs? What do you need to give up in order to do the things that you should be doing? What are you saying yes to that is draining you of your motivation and of your focus? Brene Brown might say things like, well, are you treating yourself with self-compassion here? Are you choosing courage over comfort? Another approach is to ask yourself, what would you tell your best friend if they were in the same situation? This comes not only with the practicality of outsider's perspective, the removed emotion of outsider's perspective, but also the compassion that you would have for your best friend, which is really important when you're journaling. And then there is the question, how would my best self handle this situation? This perspective is really helpful for interpersonal problems particularly. So if you're having an argument with your partner, you're really struggling with your boss, you don't know how to talk to your friend about that issue, this question can be a really good prompt. It forces you to raise your level and respond to the situation in a way that you're going to be proud of. Your worst self would put all of the blame on the other person. Your best self would take responsibility for their actions. Your worst self might send a passive-aggressive message. Your best self would take the person to the side and communicate in a healthy way about their emotions. Your worst self would bitch to their colleagues about how unhappy they were with their boss. Your best self would communicate with your boss about what you need or start looking elsewhere. You could even do your journaling just like that, have a worst self column, have a best self column, and map out what the best response is to the situation. Click the link in the description below to get 2 months of Skillshare for free. You can watch all of the classes, see what it's like, and learn a whole bunch along the way. If you liked this video on intentional journaling, you might like my video on how to upgrade your life times 20. I'm gonna have that linked on the screen as well as down below. It has a whole bunch of mindset shifts that might be helpful to you. They are all things that I'm working on in my own life that I'm using to help myself grow, that I wanted to share with you guys. I appreciate you all so very much, and I will see you soon.